The corridor outside the human quarters was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the ship's luminescent panels. Lyra, a young alien engineer from the Andari fleet, had been assigned to maintain the humans' living space during the routine inspection cycle. She was meticulous, methodical, and unusually curious about the creatures known as humans, whose habits often seemed strange to her species. She had studied them extensively in theory, but direct observation was rare, and the opportunity had unexpectedly presented itself tonight. The door to the humans' room slid open with a gentle hiss, and Lyra stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of organic oils and the recycled air of the spacecraft. The human lay in the center of the bed, motionless, his chest rising and falling with steady rhythm. He appeared entirely at ease, unaware of the presence of any observers. Lyra paused at the threshold, noting how peaceful he looked. Her species did not sleep in the same way. They entered a state of energy stasis, which was almost ceremonial in nature. Watching a human sleep was different, almost mesmerizing in its simplicity. For a moment, Lyra's mind wandered to the reports she had read. Humans, despite their apparent fragility, were remarkably resilient. They healed quickly from injuries, adapted to extreme conditions, and possessed a level of ingenuity that even her technologically advanced species sometimes struggled to match. Here was a living example, and yet so vulnerable in this moment of unconsciousness. She had to resist the instinct to approach too closely, knowing that any sudden movement might startle him. Her task, however, was not merely to observe. The room's environmental regulators had been acting up, causing slight temperature fluctuations. Lyra moved to the control panel near the foot of the bed, her hands hovering over the tactile interface. She had calibrated these panels countless times before, but doing so while another being rested in the room brought an unusual weight to her movements. Every adjustment had to be precise, not just for the machinery, but to avoid disturbing him. She reached for a small sensor module, intending to scan the room's atmosphere to ensure optimal comfort. As she worked, Lyra's gaze drifted back to the human. He shifted slightly in his sleep, murmuring a sound that was almost musical. Lyra noted the subtleties of his breathing, the way his eyelids twitched, the small, unconscious movements that revealed the inner workings of his mind. It fascinated her. She had never seen a creature so outwardly unprotected, yet so inherently capable of survival. The contrast intrigued her, stirring a curiosity that went beyond mere technical inspection. The minutes stretched, punctuated by the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Lyra's adjustments to the environmental controls were meticulous, and slowly the room reached equilibrium. She stepped back and observed the human once more. He was still sleeping, oblivious to her presence, yet somehow his presence filled the space in a way that made the artificiality of the ship fade into the background. It was a strange sensation for her, this awareness of another life form in such an intimate and unguarded state. Suddenly, the human shifted more noticeably, rolling onto his side. Lyra instinctively took a half-step back, careful not to intrude. She had read that humans sometimes reacted unpredictably if disturbed during sleep. Yet even in this vulnerability, there was a certain elegance in the motion, a fluidity that spoke of agility and physical awareness. Lyra's analytical mind cataloged the movements, noting the balance, the subtle tension in muscles, the evenness of breath. Her species valued efficiency, and in this, the human displayed a natural economy of motion that was remarkable. Lyra's attention was drawn to a faint, light flickering from the bedside console, a minor anomaly in the system she had almost missed. She moved to adjust it, her long fingers brushing lightly over the smooth surface. The human shifted again, a small murmur escaping his lips. Lyra froze, waiting to see if he would awaken. When he did not, she continued her work, her movements careful, deliberate. As though performing a delicate ritual. Was during this quiet vigilance that Lyra noticed something else, The human's wrist monitor was signaling a minor irregularity. Nothing dangerous, she calculated, but a detail worth noting. She crouched slightly to examine the device, her optics enhancing the faint readouts displayed on the screen. Humans had developed their own forms of biofeedback technology, and while primitive by Andari standards, the ingenuity behind the design was undeniable. She made a note to log the irregularity for later review, appreciating the subtle way humans combine simplicity and functionality. Time passed, and the ship's systems stabilized fully. Lyra straightened, feeling the weight of her inspection complete. She allowed herself a moment to simply watch the human again. Even unclothed, even at his most vulnerable, there was a resilience in his form, a testament to evolution, adaptation, and the strange, enduring tenacity of humans. Her admiration grew quietly, a silent acknowledgement of the species' remarkable qualities. Then, as she prepared to leave, the human stirred more actively, stretching his arms above his head. Lyra stepped back instinctively, careful not to crowd him. He blinked slowly, eyes adjusting to the light of the room. There was a moment of mutual awareness, not alarm, not curiosity, simply recognition. Lyra inclined her head slightly, a gesture of respect in Andari culture. The human responded with a small, uncertain smile, the kind that seemed almost habitual, though its meaning was genuine. For Lyra, the encounter was simple but profound. She had walked into a human's private space, witnessed him at his most unguarded, and observed a species' strength in vulnerability. It was a reminder that power was not always visible in weapons or armor or fleet strength, but sometimes in the quiet persistence of life itself. Humans, she realized, had mastered the art of existing fully in the moment. Unshielded yet unbroken, a lesson her own kind could sometimes forget Dot as she left the room, closing the door behind her with the same gentle hiss. Lyra felt a renewed respect for the species she had come to study. She returned to her station, her mind cataloging observations, recording data, but the impression lingered beyond mere numbers. There was a beauty in human resilience, an elegance in their simplicity, and a quiet strength that did not require display. It was the kind of strength that inspired loyalty, trust, and admiration, a true testament to the enduring potential of humanity in the galaxy. The night continued aboard the ship, systems humming steadily, lights dimmed to conserve energy. In the human's quarters, the occupant shifted once more, curling into a comfortable position, entirely unaware of the careful scrutiny he had just undergone. Lyra, outside, allowed herself a small smile. Observation, study, and respect were not always separate. Sometimes they intertwined in unexpected ways. Tonight had been one such moment, and for her, it would be remembered not as a simple inspection, but as a quiet affirmation of the enduring, understated strength of humans, a species that could thrive, endure, and inspire, even while asleep. Lyra's final step back from the room was light, careful, and deliberate. She had witnessed more than data points. She had witnessed life itself, unguarded yet uncheckable. In that fleeting observation, she understood why humans could endure the galaxy's vast challenges. They were not defined by appearances or vulnerability, but by the persistent, quiet courage of being fully alive. Moment by moment, the ship moved onward through the stars, carrying both human and alien, observer and observed, bound together in a shared journey across the cosmos. And in that journey, Lyra carried with her the knowledge that the smallest, quietest moments could reveal the truest essence of strength.